Welcome back, beautiful people, to a new vlog. This is the first one in English because why? Because we are flying to London. Because I'm an intern at Inform. Inform is an NGO providing value-free information on new religious movements, and they're having a closed meeting where other NGOs from Europe and Canada and US are coming, and it's like a little get-together. And I take you with me. I mean, I cannot show you the meeting because it's a closed meeting, but I can show you Inform because, spoiler alert, I am not the first person who does knowledge transfer or science communication on new religious movements. I just leveled it up or put it on social media. It's Eileen Barker. She's the queen of knowledge transfer regarding NIMs. And I think she's been through a lot of things like critics and all that stuff I've been through too, and I hope we get her in front of the camera and she can introduce herself and inform. And of course, I want to introduce you to Sarah and Suzanne. No, Tim, we need to put pictures, both of them, in here. Because Suzanne found me on Instagram. She's the honorary director, and I hope they're going to tell you something about Inform, what they do, what they did in the past and everything. So that's the plan. Yeah, take you with me to the trip, show you the hotel, show you London a bit, introduce you to Inform. And I think we still have 30 minutes until boarding. I'll enjoy my coffee and see you in London. Welcome to London, beautiful people. Before I show you the hotel room, as always, I just wanted to add that I'm here for 3 days. Today we have Sunday. It's a closed meeting with the other NGOs who deal with topics on new religious movements. Then on Monday we're gonna visit the ISKCON temple. We do several field trips. We're gonna visit the Unification Church too, but I know that I can film at ISKCON. It's the Hare Krishna temple. And get Suzanne, the honorary director of Inform, in front of the camera explaining to us what they're doing, what their belief system is, because she's specialized in new religious movements who have Hinduism as their foundation. Yeah, that's it. I change now because the meeting starts in like 1 hour. So you come in here, and actually that's it. Anybody who visited London before knows that London hotels are very small and expensive. I'm staying in, what is it, in Bethnal Green. It's in East London, I guess. But anyways, so this is the bed. It has a TV, yeah, closet, whatever. Hi, sexy smart lady. Just a short video break because we found out that 78% of the people who are watching the videos have not subscribed to the Sarah's channel. No! I think that's a no-go. Go and follow this channel if you want to see more videos on religion, new religious movements or religious topics, and also follow the Inform channel too. 78%, guys, that's ridiculous. And now we move on with the video. I'm off to the meeting right now. We have 45 minutes left and I'm so excited to see Suzanne and Sarah again. It's been a while. I think it's 2.5 years. It was before my first day in the US. So in 2022, yeah, 2 years. And I'm also so excited, as I said before, because I never met Eileen before. And she's everybody who follows me on Instagram and watch the YouTube vlogs now that she's my queen. She's my idol, and everything I'm going to say to her is going to be trash. Believe me that I'm so nervous. I'm so scared. Also have a lot of anxieties, but I'm excited too. Drop in the comments if you ever met someone you looked up to and you were so nervous. And by the way, I'm not alone. Mona is with me from Remit for all the Germans watching the vlog. And she was responsible for the subtitles, for the PR, and she did most of the reels. So we're at King's College and I'm waiting for Mona. No, there she is. Hello. Good morning in the morning. How are you doing?
Doing the same thing. I just did some pictures.
So I already said that I'm going to introduce you, but for this, it's just good morning.
It's me, Mona.
Yeah, ready for the meeting?
Ready as can be.
Yeah. So we take you inside. As I said, we cannot film, but I say let's move. Short fun fact, because in the UK, correct me in the comments, you cannot just enter the campus building. You need to go to the reception and say what you want to do. Normally you don't get in.
Our names.
Yeah, normally you don't get in. So I figured out that in 21 or 22 when I came here to meet and form for the first time, and I was like, oh, I can study at King's College because it's, it's fancy and you get the vibe in the library, but it didn't work out because I'm not a student or PhD candidate here in the UK or in London. So anyways, let's go.
Let's go.
So we arrived at the meeting. It's a closed meeting, so see you later, guys.
Hello.
The meeting just ended. We are completely exhausted. It was the whole morning until, what is it, like 5:30?
5:30, yeah.
5:30. And as I said, Mona is going to introduce herself properly and Remit.
I'm Mona Stumpe. I'm a member and second chairwoman of Remit, which is an organization, a German organization, which is roughly translated to religious studies, information and media services.
What is it in German?
Remit, Religionswissenschaftlicher Medien- und Informationsdienst. Yeah, we're an organization which tries to reach the public with objective information about different kind of organizations and religious groups, and especially new religious movements. And yeah, we're always looking for new members and new possibilities to get into networking, and this is why I'm here today.
Tell me, what are your takeaways from the meeting? I mean, we cannot talk in more detail as it was a closed meeting, but what are your takeaways?
I think my takeaways are that networking is so important, and I learned so many things from our fellow NGOs from Switzerland, from Canada, England as well. We're all doing the same thing, so why shouldn't we work together? Religious studies is such a small subject in every country. So it just makes sense to, cooperate and to network.
Yeah, and I think it is the atmosphere when you're sitting with people who are on the same page and want to do connect to university, want to do knowledge transfer, want to help to get information into society. I think it's different. It's a different discussion. I think that's pretty cool. And I hand you the camera because my takeaway is that we discussed about how the different organizations handle media inquiries.
Yeah.
That was interesting because I think it differs from country to country.
Definitely.
In Germany, you don't know the numbers of new religious movement in different countries, and for me, it was interesting to see which new religious movements are on vogue in each country.
Yeah.
But it's similar. I mean, the yoga and mindfulness thing is pretty big. I'm not studying those movements, but I'm doom scrolling on Instagram, and then you see them doing meditation and all that things. And I think that is kind of refreshing because
It
you
is.
feel like in a bubble, and out. And when you're just in the ivory tower studying your movement or your topic, you don't come across those numbers or
That's true.
things.
That's true.
So are you excited for the field trips?
I am so excited for the field trips because I haven't been to these kind of congregations, which is Hare Krishna and the
Unification Church.
Unification Church. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it will be fun to talk to them and kind of get to know the organizations because I'm not an expert on both of them, but
No, me neither. And it's a bit embarrassing.
well, you can't know everything.
No, you
I mean, if you're studying study of religions, then you have to focus on something, and you can't have the deep knowledge of all of them.
Yeah, but the fun fact is that every time when I'm in London, I'm always go to the Hare Krishna temple because they have an amazing restaurant and it's pretty cheap. Yeah. Yeah, and I think
I'm looking forward to that as well.
yeah, and I think that's it, guys. So we arrived at the ISKCON temple. I'm here with Suzanne and I told you that she knows more about the temple than I am. And as I said, never do knowledge transfer on something you don't know. It's very important. So tell us what we are going to do today.
So this is the Central London temple of the ISKCON movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Hare Krishnas. And if you can hear some bells and chanting in the background, that's coming from the temple room upstairs. ISKCON first got its start in London in 1969 and had its first temple just a few streets over, but it got really big when George Harrison became associated. So the Hare Krishna movement had a good start for its first few years in Britain, but was very associated with the counterculture. And these days it's integrated a huge amount of the Indian community. Many of the people coming and going to the temple are second generation Indian immigrants to Britain. And it's really an established feature of Oxford Street. They run down the street doing their chanting and engaging people walking down. They're just a kind of a standard feature of central London. They have food drives outside of all the universities, and they give free food to university students, so they're very popular amongst university students. Mm-hmm. And they're a fascinating movement. They believe in bhakti or devotion to Krishna, and that Krishna is one of the most accessible.
You're such a pro.
And keep beautiful. You'll have to cut this because
Yeah, it's okay. We
so
don't cut
but they believe that Krishna is one of the most accessible forms of the divine. So the divine can be found in many different forms, but Krishna has this lovely cherub-like child form who steals ghee and is like a bit cheeky. He's got a form where he's kind of a lover, and he's got all sorts of different aspects. So whatever you find most appealing, you're encouraged to be attracted to, and that sensory attraction then leads you to an experience of a supersensory divine.
And they have their roots in Hinduism, right?
Absolutely. They're Gaudiya Vaishnavites. So in some ways they're very old bhakti devotional movements, very old, it's kind of anti-caste. But in other ways it's very new because their guru Prabhupada was the first person to really say this isn't a strictly Indian devotional movement. Anyone can join in. And so lots of people from all over the world now feel that they can become devotees of Krishna and be almost traditional in their Indian forms of worship.
So to whom are we speaking today?
Rup Danuga Bhakti Das has arranged for us to speak to a few devotees, and I think that he's arranged a room upstairs in the temple so we can ask some questions and find out what life is like as a devotee in Britain.
Do you think why is that important, or why does Inform do things like this?
It's important to understand what the experience of these people are from their own point of view, and it can be particularly interesting to understand how groups change over time, because a lot of movements, once they have their first generation of enthusiastic converts, then they either have a second generation or integrate in the community in different ways. And if they're going to survive, they're going to change. And so it's important to keep talking to them to understand how they're adapting to the different challenges they face, how they have responded to criticism or maybe scandals in the movement, and also just how they would like to express their beliefs and practices, because they're the best experts on their beliefs and practices. And you can't really understand what they're doing unless you ask them.
Media coverage of you and your movement. Are you satisfied with the way you are portrayed in, let's say, British media? Or have you, noticed the change in this as well?
From my personal experience being here in central London, not so much, but our movement has been, as you mentioned, through some growing pains. Some of them have been quite difficult. One of the worst ones, I think, which our movement has been through, is the child abuse thing. That was devastating for every sincere member of the Krishna conscious movement. Now, one good thing that our movement did, I think, at least from my personal perspective, when it was discovered and shocked our whole movement, we went to the media and told them.
So hello, beautiful people. Finally, we got Suzanne. We wanted to do it at the meeting, but it was so busy and we were all so exhausted. So we're doing it now. So this is the famous Suzanne Newcombe. You want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Suzanne. I'm the director of Inform at the present time, and it's been my pleasure to have Anna's help for quite a few years now.
Yeah, just maybe you can tell the people how you found me.
I found
it was a huge network thing, right?
No, it was scrolling through Instagram, and I saw her post on the cowboy churches. I'm not quite sure how they came onto my feed.
You're from Kansas.
Yeah, but I'm from Kansas, and Anna did her master's at the University of Kansas, or
yeah, my last semester.
Your last semester of the master's there, which is where I grew up, and I was like, oh my god, someone's like studying where I grew up. That's so exciting. Yeah, Tim Miller, who you studied with, is a friend through Eileen. So there were network connections of real people, but it was the cowboy church that.
Do you want to say something about Inform, what it's all about?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So, and apologies for my voice.
We are all tired. It was pretty.
So Inform. I mean, how do I start at the beginning?
Yeah, why not?
So Inform was founded in 1988 by Professor Eileen Barker to reduce the harm caused by ignorance and misinformation about new religious movements. And it was founded with a startup grant from the Home Office. There's a very entertaining story about that we heard at our last seminar. But there was a lot of panic, and parents were really anxious about children who had joined strange religions in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s. And the British government was being asked to intervene, to make these groups illegal, to stage interventions in other countries. And they were like, hold on a minute, we don't know what's going on here. And Eileen was one of the few people who had done really in-depth sociological research about it at that time. And so she got together a group of people to say, look, we can... Not all these religions are doing everything you think they are, and there's a fundamental principle of freedom of belief going on here. We don't want to just legislate against groups because of moral panics. We want to actually have empirical information about what is the harm that was caused. Are there any laws broken here? Is this person making a free choice? And often a lot of things can be resolved through mediation and better information. And so Inform was kind of set up to try to hold a space of empirically verified data and kind of reality checking, fact checking, in fact, in the 1980s. So Eileen's book here was kind of what started Inform.
It's the making of the Mooney.
Yeah, which is still a staple of a lot of sociology courses today. But I mean, she wasn't saying that the Moonies were altogether the best organization, and she wasn't converted, she wasn't paid for them. But what she did show was that most people who were approached just say no. Most people who attended the weekends left quite quickly. And then those who did continue to be involved were often drawn for ideological reasons. They really wanted to change the world. They made a choice, and obviously there's social pressure. There's a lot of socialization that goes on, but unpacking how that works is different from saying a group is brainwashing everyone and is really dangerous. And a lot of the processes of socialization, of unhealthy relationships that you find in high demand, high control groups are variations of things you find in families and schools. We're socialized to accept authority in various ways. And I mean, what I've learned studying new religious movements is that actually I think the depth of our socialization for some of these unhealthy ways of relating to other people is much more pervasive and much scarier because of that than just blaming a group which has a bit of a strange belief here and there. And yeah, the world can be a better place if we can unpack the actual mechanisms of unhealthy relationships without making unsubstantiated generalizations or assumptions about groups that we don't actually have that much information about.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do with the both vlog series. As I said before, that I'm not the person who invented knowledge transfer in new religious movement. I just leveled it up or put it on social media in a way.
On the next level.
On the next level on YouTube to provide these informations. And I think that's an important point. I mean, what you said about the brainwashing, you can watch the first episode on brainwashing. We talk about exactly this, what you said. And maybe you can, from your perspective, because people see me just talking, it's important to do knowledge transfer, science communication. Maybe you can say from your perspective why you would encourage people to do it, step out of the ivory tower. And I don't mean necessarily for new religious movements, of course, but it can be applied to Islam, Judaism, Buddhism as well. But we tend to stay somehow in the ivory tower because we're afraid, some scholars are afraid to go outside and talk about it because they don't want to say anything wrong, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is scary to kind of leave your archive or office or wherever you've been and you're used to getting criticism from your tutors, your professors, and saying, oh, you've got this all wrong. But you're studying something because you're genuinely interested in it. You think it's important for some reason. It's got some reason why this is interesting for you personally and society. So you were driven because there's a social interest, or at least an individual interest, of why you chose your subject. And then as someone who's trained in researching, you've got a systematic method of getting verifiable information about it. You've got a way of researching which can be replicated, which can be analysed, which can be critiqued, which is really important and I think often forgot about in this kind of crisis of expertise. I mean, you're not just cherry picking from social media what you think about something if you're doing academic research, even at a master's level. So you actually have real knowledge, and more importantly, you know the limits of your knowledge, which is why you might be a bit reticent to step forward. And there's definitely a point when you're researching where it's kind of like, oh my God, there's so much I don't know here.
Which is okay, I guess. Because I say it all the time. It's like, I have no idea. I don't study this specific movement, or I don't know, because I just study media and Scientology. I say you have to ask someone else.
Absolutely. So actually knowing what you don't know and being willing to say my knowledge only goes so far is such an important thing to do in the public space, because there's so many people who just claim airtime and make things up for their own agenda, and they don't know any more than you. They actually know less than you. But if you can say, this is the limits of what we know, I can make some guesses. So a lot of times we've got 5,000 religious groups on our database. I don't know everything about them. And sometimes I get it wrong, but I can kind of say this group grew out of, say, a prosperity gospel movement. They have these beliefs about money being having this reciprocal relationship with God, and if you give more money, God will give more to you. So a lot of what we do at Inform is say we can't tell you what to do, but we can provide you with a lot of information which will help you make a more educated decision based on whatever question you need answering, whatever decision you need to make.
Yeah, and I think it is more important than ever because the notion, it's I probably hear the same in the US and the UK, that people tend to go on social media and get their information about certain groups on social media. And we need to step up more, you know what I mean? Not on social media precisely, but in general. I mean, to be more present, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think it's really a kind of a how do you know what you know?
Right.
Barack Obama had talked about this crisis of epistemology quite a long time just to use, but it's basically how do you know what you know? And as someone who's doing further study in the academy, you are really learning and understanding how do you know anything? How is knowledge created? So when you read something on Wikipedia about your area of special interest, or when you see what AI throws up in your area of special interest, you're like, wait, hold on a second. I've been to the archives. I've met these people. That's not quite right. But if you just digest that because it's the easiest thing, it's a different kind of knowledge, and it's very superficial and often not based on reality. And so the better we can get as a society in knowing the difference, and sure, those summaries are useful if you don't know anything about the subject, but they're just a starting place, and you have to figure out what's wrong with them, and how the received wisdom got to be the received wisdom, and what stories are silenced, what archives aren't part of that. How can you discover in more depth what the situation is here?
Yeah, and I think we have the notion too, we talked about it, not in front of the camera, but before, that it is important that you know your topic, because in Germany there's, okay, Anna, you're doing knowledge transfer, okay, then do it for Islam, do it for Judaism, but it's important that you know your topic.
I mean, it's important to do both.
Yeah, that's right, but you know what I'm getting at.
And so it's because you have that skill in doing in-depth research that you have some authority that is based in experience and in knowledge about what you do know and what you don't know. And you have I think it's quite important to be able to communicate that. And if you have a specific finding that has relevance in society for some reason, and you never quite know if that will have relevance, but you'd be surprised the different kinds of situations where you might actually have relevant expertise. But I think it's really, I think scholars have a duty to right. share our knowledge, because so much of it is behind paywalls. Our peer-reviewed articles are really important standards of getting feedback and being part of the academic conversation. But even people in government, people who are making the decisions, don't have access to them. So unless you bring the findings to their attention and put them out there, they're not going to be part of the decision-making process, and people aren't going to be making decisions about our society that are based on real research-based information.
So what would you say about critiques? Like when people critique what you say? Like I one comment under one YouTube video where like, why do you talk to a Scientologist? I don't share that opinion. It's just a platform for Scientology. So did Inform get any critique?
Oh, absolutely. And I think also about science, communicating what science is. Science is a process of understanding the world. It is a discussion, like the findings are always contested. And right. if it's just assumed to be true and it's never challenged, that's not actually science. So a lot of this idea of like the scientific consensus says...
We want to clip that for an Instagram reel. That was cool. Go ahead.
The scientific consensus actually says there is a kind of general agreement, but it's always moving in a direction. And if it's not being challenged, if the limits aren't being pushed, you're not part of a scientific discourse. And so you will say stuff wrong, and that's okay. That's part of doing your job. That's part of being a researcher. That's part of communicating to the public.
Yeah, I think that's a great end.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It was helpful. I'm inspired now.